With the first patch of Dragonflight done, I think it's a good time to take a look at overall damage of each class and find out from general graphs from Vault of Incarnates, on normal, heroic and mythic, and from mythic plus dungeons, what seems to be the top 10 most dominant specs in terms of DPS. Note that this may differ from one place to another, and that the difference is not that big, and you should play whatever class you like the most, and this mostly matters just in super high-end mythic raiding or very high keys. But with that said, let's take a look at some of the best specs from Dragonflight so far. Number 10 is Destruction Warlock, with some really cool spells coming back in the new talents, great single target damage and 2 target damage, as well as a good burst, great cleave and a low ramp up time. It's a solid spec that is not very hard to play. It's definitely a lot easier than both Demonology or Affliction, and the only downside would be the low mobility and the need of cooldowns for high bursts. Number 9 is Balanced Druid, my main for 100 years. It feels a bit weaker now than in Shadowlands, and is quite tiring to play with having to keep up 15 different dots on every target, but if you manage to do it right, it does huge damage, especially in Mythic Plus, since it is probably the best AoE damage spec in the game right now. And it did just get a rework for the talent tree this patch, so you got more options now as well. Number 8 I would say is the Devastation Evoker. Even if it started quite low as people started learning how to play the class, a good Evoker can do crazy damage, especially in Mythic Plus, but they are climbing higher and higher every week in overall damage in the raid too. With a lot of utility and raid buffs, and crazy AoE and very fun spells, I think we will see it just getting stronger over time as more people learn how to master it. Number 7 is WINDWALKER Monk. Consistently in top 10 on every chart, even if not as strong as some of the following picks, it's a good option for Dragonflight, being a jack of all trades with amazing mobility and strong bursts and sustained AoE and cleave. Number 6 is HAVOC Demon Hunter. Was this spec ever not good? One of the easiest specs in the game with very few abilities, but a fun and solid rotation, and a lot of interesting talents. Although, you can use some of the talents to take off even more abilities, so you mostly just auto-attack and become a demon and top the damage charts and annoy everyone in arenas and PvP, so it's quite a fun spec to play, especially for newer players. Number 5 is Marksmanship Hunter. Quite always a pretty solid pick, pretty easy to learn and master, and is the only ranged class with mostly instant casts, so it feels good and unique, and offers quite a lot of options with the talents. But on Marksmanship the rotation is quite simple, and you don't even need to use a pet if you don't want to. At number 4, Enhancement Shaman. It did a lot better than Elemental in this raid tier and in Mythic Plus. It has very strong single target damage as well as great multi-target cleave and a lot of powerful instant burst options, as well as plenty of useful buffs for the group with totems, so it's a great spec to play right now. For number 3, Unholy Decay. It did amazing in both raids and Mythic Plus, with all the dots and the new talents and ghouls and spreading the diseases. It really has a solid DPS, and you can see them at the top of the chart in many raid groups too, even if it can be a bit complicated with how many dots there are to keep track of and cooldowns to use, while Frost is a lot simpler and only has 3 buttons, but a good Unholy Decay would always outperform a good Frost Decay. Number 2 would be Arcane Mage, I would say. Very strong, especially in raids. It also doesn't really feel like a 2-button class anymore, and you have more options with all the new talents. And it's ahead of Frost and Fire pretty much everywhere right now. And it can be number 1 in some charts on some difficulties. Overall, it's a quite fun spec to learn right now with all the mana management and extra abilities available, and it's a solid ranged damage pick. And at number 1 we got Rogue. Yep, not a spec, the entire class. All 3 specs are consistently high in every chart, with usually Outlaw being first, so if we had to pick a spec, then let's go with Outlaw Rogue. It's a pretty fun spec right now with all the AoE and with how the roll the dice works, and it's not that complicated. With how complex subtlety can be, Outlaw might actually be the easiest rogue spec to learn to play right now, at least for PvE. And that's it for this list. Let me know your favorite specs from Dragonflight and if you agree with this list, and if you wanna see more videos like this, maybe with PvP or with tanks and healers. It's great that the expansion is super alt friendly, so you can play multiple classes without lagging behind too much. And thanks for watching.